This is a reading of an excerpt from Sonny's Blues, a short story by James Baldwin. I didn't write Sonny or send him anything for a long time. When I finally did, it was just after my little girl died, and he wrote me back a letter which made me feel like a bastard. Here's what he said. Dear brother, you don't know how much I needed to hear from you. I wanted to write you many a time, but I dug how much I must have hurt you, and so I didn't write. But now I feel like a man who's been trying to climb up out of some deep, real deep and funky hole, and just saw the sun up there outside. I got to get outside. I can't tell you much about how I got here. I mean, I don't know how to tell you. I guess I was afraid or something. Or I was just trying to escape from something, and you know, I have never been very strong in the head. Smile. I'm glad Mama and Daddy are dead and can't see what's happened to their son. And I swear, if I'd known what I was doing, I never would have hurt you so. You and a lot of other fine people who were nice to me and who believed in me. I don't want you to think it had anything to do with me being a musician. It's more than that. Or maybe less than that. I can't get anything straight in my head down here, and I try not to think about what's going to happen to me when I get outside again. Sometime I think I'm going to flip and never get outside, and sometime I think I'll come straight back. I tell you one thing, though. I'd rather blow my brains out than go through this again. But that's what they all say, so they tell me. If I tell you when I'm coming to New York, or if you could meet me, I would sure appreciate it. Give my love to Isabel and the kids, and I was sure sorry to hear about little Gracie. I wish I could be like Mama and say, the Lord's will be done, but I don't know. Seems to me the trouble is the one thing that never does get stopped. And I don't know what good it does to blame it on the Lord. But maybe it does some good, if you believe it. Your brother, Sonny. Then I kept in constant contact with him, and I sent him whatever I could, and I went to meet him when he came back to New York. When I saw him, many things I thought I had forgotten came flooding back to me. This was because I had begun, finally, to wonder about Sonny, about the life Sonny lived inside. This life, whatever it was, had made him older and thinner, and it had deepened the distant stillness in which he had always moved. He looked very unlike my baby brother, yet when he smiled, when we shook hands, the baby brother I'd never known looked out from the depths of his private life like an animal waiting to be coaxed into the light. How you been keeping? He asked me. All right, and you? Just fine. He was smiling all over his face. It's good to see you again. It's good to see you. The 7 years difference in our ages lay between us like a chasm. I wondered if these years would ever operate between us as a bridge. I was remembering, and it made it hard to catch my breath, that I had been there when he was born. And I had heard the first words he had ever spoken. When he started to walk, he walked from our mother straight to me, and I caught him before he fell when he took the first steps he ever took in this world. How's Isabel? Just fine. She's dying to see you. And the boys? They're fine too. They're anxious to see their uncle. Oh, come on. You know they don't remember me. Are you kidding? Of course they remember you. He grinned again. We got into a taxi. We had a lot to say to each other, far too much to know how to begin. Do you mind, he asked, if we have the driver drive alongside the park? I haven't seen the city in so long. Of course not, I said. I was afraid that I might sound as though I was humoring him, but I hoped he wouldn't take it that way. So we drove along between the green of the park and the stony, lifeless elegance of hotels and apartment buildings, toward the vivid killing streets of our childhood. These streets hadn't changed, though housing projects jutted up out of them now like rocks in the middle of a boiling sea. Most of the houses in which we had grown up had vanished, as had the stores from which we had stolen, the rooftops from which we had hurled tin cans and bricks. But houses exactly like the houses of our past yet dominated the landscape. Boys exactly like the boys we once had been found themselves smothering in these houses, came down into the streets for light and air, and found themselves encircled by disaster. Some escaped the trap. Most didn't. Those who got out always left something of themselves behind. As some animals amputate a leg and leave it in the trap, it might be said, perhaps, that I had escaped. After all, I was a school teacher, or that Sonny had. He hadn't lived in Harlem for years, yet as the cab moved uptown through the streets, which seemed with a rush to darken with dark people, and as I covertly studied Sonny's face, it came to me that what we both were seeking through our separate cab windows was that part of ourselves which had been left behind. It's always at the hour of trouble and confrontation that missing limb aches. We hit 110th Street and started rolling up Lenox Avenue. And I'd known this avenue all my life, but it seemed to me again as it had seemed on the day I'd first heard about Sonny's trouble, filled with a hidden menace, which was its very breath of life. "We almost there," said Sonny. "Almost." We were both too nervous to say anything more.